What's up guys, this is VinylicPuma, back with another Borderlands video, and I'm excited to present my very first Borderlands 3 video. Today, I'd like to go over what I think are some of the better guns that you could get your hands on in Borderlands 3's early game. Now, I define the early game as being before level 20 and also before a certain traumatizing event for some Borderlands 2 fans that occurs within Borderlands 3's main story. I would say what that event is, but for the sake of spoilers, I don't want to divulge that here. Also, I should probably mention that a lot of the analysis I'll be giving here is based off of my own experience. With that in mind, you may find that some weapons I discuss here appear differently from the variant you receive, and I'm also not going to be able to give you guys a really in-depth stat comparison to similar weapons with identical parts. Despite that though, I think you'll find many of the guns I recommend here are pretty good all the same. And finally, definitely be sure to smash like on this video if you're enjoying Borderlands 3 so far. I've basically been marathoning the game the past couple of days, and it is amazing just how long this game is. So if you haven't picked up the game yet, you're going to be in for a real treat. Otherwise guys, let's go ahead here in no particular order and start with our first gun, which is going to be the Big Suck. Even though it's possible to randomly get assault rifles with similar functionality, the Big Suck has the advantage of being consistently available to the player in the earlier sections of Pandora. All one has to do is simply start the Skag Dog Days side quest, where they will then be prompted to retrieve the Big Suck. Upon doing so, you'll continue to have this gun in your inventory until the mission has been completed. Now, the reason this is actually a fairly decent assault rifle early on is because it comes with a grenade launcher underbarrel. This can prove to be really useful in knocking enemies around, which temporarily stuns them and makes them more vulnerable to your other attacks. In fact, this can be fun to do, as you can sometimes knock enemies off of high ledges or off of the map, provided you're in the right place. That, and it's just kind of funny to watch random bandits fly way up into the air with a well-placed grenade shot. If you're looking for a decent rifle early on, I think you'll agree that this ends up fitting the bill quite nicely. Just take care to not complete the Skag Dog Days side quest, as once you do, this gun will be lost forever. Number 2. The Leech. Assuming you've managed to make your way off of Pandora, there's a good chance that you've already got this weapon since it's a quest reward for completing the Taking Flight main mission. Despite the fact that you already know about this thing, the Leech does have a couple of things going for it. In general, reloads seem to be pretty fast for the main non-elemental damage mode. You're getting a blade accessory, which is nice for when you want to bash enemies. And of course, the best part about the Leech is that you can use it to heal yourself. Unfortunately, this effect is restricted to the dart firing mode, but as an upside, you can either fire this dart directly at an enemy or at the ground, with the latter option potentially allowing you to damage and heal from up to 4 enemies at once. So, assuming you get low on health, you can simply swap to ult fire, duck behind cover, and recover some of your lost health. If you ask me, this is a pretty good weapon to have just as you're starting Promethea, as it's got a good rarity and has a decent special effect. While I do wish the weapon itself was fully fire elemental and the healing portion worked on both the ult fire and main firing mode, the Leech is still a pretty good gun for the early game. All you have to do is make sure you don't accidentally drop or sell it shortly after you first get it. Number 3. The Selecki Protocol. Now, if you're familiar with Borderlands 1, there's a good chance that you might be familiar with the Orion. Interestingly, the Orion has a sort of spiritual successor in this game in the form of the Selecki Protocol, which is a Maliwan sniper that produces 5 ricochet projectiles upon the initial hitting a surface. Unlike the Orion, the Selecki Protocol has some unique functions. Namely, the protocol can be charged up by holding the firing button down, and this will improve your damage output. Additionally, the ult fire mode on the Selecki Protocol changes the axis of how the projectiles ricochet when they hit a surface. Setting it to X will allow the ricochets to go along the X or horizontal axis, while setting it to Y will cause the ricochets along the Y or vertical axis. Of the two, I prefer the Y since most enemies like bandits aren't very wide and are kind of small, but both modes should come in handy depending on the enemies you're taking on. After all, you might be better off with the X-axis mode on wider enemies. Otherwise, there's not really a whole lot else to say about this thing. It's a pretty decent sniper for the early game and could also be decent later on, provided you get a high-level variant. If you want this sniper, it's acquired during the Proof of Wife side quest that's located in Lectra City on Promethea. Number 4. The Nog Potion number 9. Though you're probably only going to want to use these against a specific type of enemy called a Nog, the Nog Potion number 9 is actually pretty good and can definitely come in handy while you're on the planet of Athenas or parts of Promethea. As the item card describes, the Nog Potion number 9 allows you to convert Nogs to fight on your side for a short period. This could prove to be fairly useful since it can help crowd control wherever a Nog is present. I ended up mostly using the Nog Potion number 9 on Athenas where Nogs seem to spawn most frequently, but you may find you end up using this grenade again in the later parts of the game should you encounter more Nogs. As I've said, I'd recommend you focus on using this grenade on Nog-type enemies exclusively, but should you get in a pinch, it's an okay grenade otherwise. If you want the Nog Potion number 9, it's received by completing the technical Nog Outside quest that's located in the Meridian outskirts on Promethea. Number 5. The Killing Word. If you're at the very beginning of the game, the Killing Word is actually pretty decent. While it will chew through your ammo pool really quickly, the gun itself actually has a number of notable attributes such as fairly low recoil, high rate of fire, and of course, high magazine size. Now, technically, the gun has durability and overheats when you shoot too many bullets, but I'm just going to say for the sake of fairness that it has a high magazine size. There's also the special effect of the weapon itself. It's mostly visual, allowing for red and blue sonic-type projectiles to be fired at enemies, but it is also worth noting that these travel in a vertical sine wave formation. Now, this does make the weapon less ideal at range, but if you're spraying and praying enemies up close, this really isn't going to matter, and this is really what I would recommend you use the gun for. In my humble opinion, I'd have to say that the Killing Word is a good early game weapon and potentially decent mid-game weapon as well. If you want this thing early, just take on Mouthpiece during the main quest and he will drop one. If you want it later on, a new Mouthpiece will spawn during the A New Pandoran Mouthpiece side quest and you can get it to drop from that Mouthpiece. Number 6. The Redistributor. While it's probably not the most powerful gun on this list, the Redistributor is actually pretty decent and is kind of hard to miss. After all, it's acquired upon completing one of the main missions, which is called the Impending Storm. What's cool about this gun is that it's a Hyperion SMG with good accuracy, a shield upon scoping, and this cool ability where every couple of shots or so, you'll fire an amped shot that deals more damage and has the potential to chain to another enemy. For those of you that are familiar with the pre-sequel, this effect is similar to the Vibrapulse. However, if you're not familiar with the Vibrapulse, as you can see from the gameplay, the chains can hit nearby enemies and deal damage. Again, it's pretty hard to miss the Redistributor since you get it upon completing the main missions. Just don't accidentally throw it out, as it's actually a pretty good gun. Number 7. The Portaper 5000. Despite its crude name and appearance, this Children of the Vault launcher is actually pretty good and in my opinion is one of the better launchers you can get in the early game. The low fire rate in conjunction with its high magazine size or high durability ensure that you won't usually find yourself in a situation where the weapon itself breaks and you need to reload. So more often than not, you'll usually end up running out of rocket launcher ammo before you actually end up breaking this particular launcher. Plus, you also have the launcher's special effect, which involves deploying fecal matter over a relatively wide area that will linger for a number of seconds. As you can imagine, enemies can step in it and take quite a bit of damage. And in fact, you may have noticed from some of the gameplay here that I'm using a level 13 version against level 20 enemies, and it's doing pretty well against them. In the end, I think you'll agree this is a pretty nice launcher, and if you want it, it's received by completing the Porta Prison side quest on Promethea. If I remember correctly, it starts in Lectra City and involves going to various other locations on the planet. Number 8. The Boo. So the Boo is encountered a little later on in the earlier parts of the game, as it's located on Athenas and just barely makes our requirement of being level 20 and under. This said though, I do think the Boo is something you will definitely want to get your hands on, especially if you're a big fan of Teedior weapons in general. Based on my experience, the Boo appears to be a shock elemental Teedior SMG that fires shock-based projectiles. However, and unlike a normal shock Teedior weapon, which will have its reload damage often match its element, the Boo doesn't do this, as the reload damage dealt will actually be fire damage instead. As you might guess, both of these effects work pretty well in tandem, as the conventional projectiles can be used to strip an enemy's shield, while the reload can be used to quickly finish them off with fire damage. If you ask me, this is a very welcome effect and makes this SMG great for taking on flesh-based enemies with conventional shielding. Overall, I think you'll agree this is a pretty good weapon early on, and if you want it, it's received upon looting the chest during the Invasion of Privacy side quest on Athenas. Again, this gun is definitely closer to mid-game, but it's still definitely worth picking up. Alright guys, I think that's going to wrap up this particular video. I should have more Borderlands 3 stuff out here soon, and if you did enjoy this video and if it helped you, definitely be sure to smash like, click the bell so you can be notified when I upload my next Borderlands video, and as always, and again, thank you all so much for supporting this channel. Take care, and obey.